Hello everyone and welcome to American Civil War and UK history, and we're on the Payne's Farm battlefield. With me is Chris Mackowski of American Civil War.
Delighted to be here.
Kind enough to give up his day to come out and give me a tour of some of the sites around here. And remember, this is one of those unforgotten battles that people just forget about, and it needs highlighting.
We're going to do one of my favorite techniques called walk and talk, and I'm just going to fill you in a little bit on the background here. Mine Run starts on Thanksgiving Day in America in November 27th, 1863. As Darren mentions, it's forgotten about, but I really think of this as George Gordon Meade's finest moment, more so even than his victory at Gettysburg, because what happens here on the banks of Mine Run could have been a Gettysburg-sized battle. It could be one of those that we rattle off when we talk about the great fights of the war, like Manassas and Gettysburg and Chancellorsville and the Wilderness. Instead, it's a campaign that leads to a big fizz out, and that's because Meade makes the hardest choice of his career. As his men are aligned to make a massive assault, he sees that they'll be assaulting fortified works, which is the first time they've had to actually go up against fortifications during the war. And he knows it's going to be a slaughter. It's freezing cold. The wounded will freeze to death before they can even get attention. And so he calls off the assault. And at first he doesn't want to. His 2nd Corps commander, Gouverneur K. Warren, actually says, like, yeah, we shouldn't do this. But then Meade says, you're right. And he calls it off. And instead he'll retreat back across the Rapidan River, very frustrated because out west Ulysses S. Grant has just scored a big win at Chattanooga. Meade, what have you done? Nothing. And he writes a very candid letter to his wife, and he says that my critics will probably say I should have attacked and been defeated as a way to prove that I was right, that we couldn't win. But he says, I will not needlessly sacrifice the lives of my men just to prove that I'm right. He's going to save his men, he's going to save his army in doing so, and his men will love him for it. And it's really the first step in what makes these men devoted to me as soldiers. But he's expecting to get fired because he did not go forward and throw them needlessly against those Confederate works. There's also a missed opportunity here for Lee, who is comfortable sitting behind his works when he could have pushed forward and caught Meade by surprise. Instead, Lee's going to be content to stay on the defense, and when Meade slips away, Lee's going to try to go after him, and Lee will be frustrated that he didn't get more out of Mine Run too. We tend to forget about the fact that Lee walks out of here empty-handed as well. So the armies will settle into winter quarters, things will pass. Ulysses S. Grant, fresh off Chattanooga, will come to the east as commander of all Union armies in March of '64, and we're going to see an entirely different war once Grant shows up.
Okay, so little shout out to Civil War Trails for putting these signs out here, and also American Battlefield Trust for saving the land, because look at this, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to this is untouched, this is it, this is the battlefield, So anyway, Chris is going to explain a little bit about the Payne's Farm battle.
So originally, if we take a look kind of behind us, the Federals were approaching the battlefield from that direction, heading down here, and then they were going to push that way to link up with the rest of the Union Army at Robinson's Tavern, which is about 3 miles behind the camera right now. Federals were never supposed to be on this road in the first place. They were supposed to take a left-hand turn at Widow Thompson's back of the road about a mile in that direction. So Blinky French, commander of the 3rd Corps, is sort of groping his way through the forest here when he stumbles into Edward Allegheny Johnson's division. Johnson's moving up along the Raccoon Ford Road on my right, heading toward the camera. And he's going to end up showing up right on the right-hand flank of the Federal 2nd Corps. It's a fantastic position for Johnson to be moving into the battlefield, except as he does, that's when French's men bump into him. And so Johnson's going to wheel around and come back and hit French here. It's a terribly lopsided fight. We've got one division, the Stonewall Division, going against the entire 3rd Corps with the entire 6th Corps stacked up behind it. There's like 30,000 Federals here against about 4,800 Confederates. Really, really lopsided odds. Johnson, though, just throws himself into this fight. Well, what began as a fight kind of going this way through the woods, as Johnson comes onto the field, he's going to wheel in from behind the camera and kind of swing across this field. So that means that the Federals are going to respond by sending men into the woods behind me there, and they're going to start pushing in this direction even as the Confederates start pushing in that direction. So the Federals then will have kind of like a V-shaped line with one leg of the V in that far tree line. They're going to hunker down behind a fence that's on a ridge there, and Johnson's men are going to go in piecemeal attacks across this field. With that big right wheel that he's got going on, he can't get all his men onto the field at the same time. And those piecemeal attacks then mean that the Federals are able to respond and repulse them. The Federals over there throw so much lead into the air. One North Carolinian said it was like mini balls by the bucketful. They start to run out of ammunition, and as a result, David Belbirney's men are going to have to come in to replace them in order to bring fresh ammunition to the front. And this is going to go on with feeble, uncoordinated attacks by the Confederates, who will get out into that field, get shot up, and then they'll fall back to this position, even as their commanders try to encourage more cohesion and more aggression. Nightfall is going to come. Johnson's going to pull his men out of here, leaving the fields to the Federals, and this field's going to be filled with detritus. So we could say the Federals win this because they hold the field, but it is a Pyrrhic victory at best. French is going to try to explain it away by saying that he forced the Confederates to evacuate the field. But really, Johnson's going to get the last laugh because French is going to get cashiered out of the 3rd Corps as a result of this battle. Meade says that it is this fight that loses him the Mine Run campaign, because had French followed the road he was supposed to, not gotten embroiled in this fight, the Federals would have been able to concentrate at Robinson's Tavern and push into Lee's rear. So this bold, over-aggressive move by Johnson really saves the Confederates here at Mine Run.
Nice. And I'm going to finish up by walking out a little bit into the field so you can enjoy the view. And remember, guys, please go and support some of these trusts that save this land, because without them you're not going to do this. So cheers, thanks for following, see you soon. Thanks to Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War. Please give Emerging Civil War's website a visit. Chris also wrote a great book on this subject called The Great Battle Never Fought, The Mine Run Campaign, which is available at all good bookstores. Please also show your support for Civil War Trails and American Battlefield Trust.